He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about to explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munsons at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I will once again be your host. I'm joined by the rest of the Munsons. Want to give them a wide berth.
What is called a born loser? A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. This time we will start with Aubrey.
Well, it's that time. We're back to school, teacher meetings, planning. I'm reading YAs the way that my teachers wish I read them when I was in school, trying to plan for the new classes that were tossed on me last minute. And so I've had to find a happy place over these past couple weeks, watching stuff that would make me feel good. So I went to two shows that make me feel good. Ted Lasso, which is brilliant. Just rewatching that. And personal favorite of mine, I don't know how many people watch this to make them feel better, but The Newsroom.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely love The Newsroom. It's probably the 6th or 7th time I've watched it. Guys, watch The Newsroom. It's great.
Really?
Whatever you got to do to give yourself peace, my friend. Whatever it takes. Ace, what about you?
I had a spiritual moment since we've last gotten together. I have come to know my spirit animal, and it is from the YouTube channel, The Y Files. Has anybody ever seen any of these videos?
Oh, no.
It's like an X-Files podcast. The host is really smart, and the topics are great, and it's well written, but his sidekick is a goldfish that's named Hecklefish. He makes really, really funny jokes that are often distracting to the story, make no sense, and he'll just start singing songs out of the blue. And
Oh, my God.
almost 100% of the time, it makes me laugh. And I'm like, I can relate to Hecklefish. And I'm excited for a little bit of Hecklefish to bleed into my persona tonight as we embark on this Stephen Tobolowsky adventure.
Man, always connects it back to the source material. You love to hear it. You really do. James, how about you?
So by the time this comes out, I will be officially starting my new job. Been a long time coming, looking for the right fit, and I'm pumped, man. I'm going to be working for a nonprofit out of Indianapolis that is helping people who are dealing with heroin addictions, and I'm really looking forward to it, man. Congrats.
That's awesome, dude. Congratulations.
Yeah, man, pumped.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Congrats.
I know you've been working hard on it, so we'll go. We'll celebrate with M. Night Shyamalan tomorrow night. How about that?
Yeah, dude, can't wait.
Oh my God. I feel like I've spent the last 2 weeks quoting one person and one person only.
You're welcome.
And that is Dougie Doug from Cool Runnings saying, "I'm feeling Olympic today." That's just what I've been doing. Feeling very Olympic today. And not that I've watched a ton of the Olympics, but I've watched enough to feel like I can live my best Dougie Doug.
Have you been walking around with the Chariots of Fire theme song too?
Unfortunately not. That my lexicon's not that broad. Just Dougie Doug. That's all.
I love the Olympics, man. Every year I'm like, oh, I don't care. And then the moment it's on, it's like it doesn't get off my TV. I watch everything, and it makes me realize that there are like two things that I think immediately unite Americans. One of them is arguing to the death over how to run America. That's like a uniting thing we love to do. And the other one is blindly and enthusiastically rooting for our country in any sport. I don't have any thoughts negatively about Jamaica or Australia, but the moment we're on the track or in the pool, I got a lot of strong feelings about those countries. And I am marching and saluting the red, white, and blue when, gymnastics is on.
Same.
The biggest winner at the Olympics was actually a loser. It was the guy who lost the pole vault because his massive dong got in the way. And
I've been hearing about this nonstop. Like, I can't.
I made the mistake of sharing that story with my wife, and I refused to share the video with her.
well, she found it. She found it on her own.
She's like, just show me the video. And I showed it to her, and I watched her break it down frame by frame. And I was like, oh my God, this is, oh no. It's like worst case scenario. Yeah. It was just like, it's that how slow can we watch this video? Like, God damn it.
Hope that guy's OnlyFans is doing well.
Oh my God.
Well, speaking of big winners, we're happy to have Cam Sullivan back from the Jacked Up Review Show podcast.
Always a delight, guys.
Cam is just a film buff and former indie filmmaker who organizes his commentators to rank everything from cult films and shows to video games, music, and food. He previously joined us for the Keith David, Dennis Haysbert, Kristen Shaw, and Julia Stiles episodes. Welcome back, Cam.
Yeah, buddy.
Hopefully this will be less divisive tonight.
I respect that.
Do you feel like Julia was divisive, or are we still talking about Dennis Haysbert?
No, not even that. I think we got into so many where it's just like, okay, they're talented, but God, I don't like many of their movies. Or they're good, but they're the kinds of movies you're only going to watch once, post award season, So I think this is going to be more interesting because this person doesn't have a chance with box office and all this stuff. Not spoiling, just that's straight up. That's straight up. Like, we're talking character actors.
Hey, you're smart.
This is going to be less about their work and more on what did we take away from their performances. So I think this is a nice contrast.
You're always testing us with your actor choices. I'll say that. We're always exploring different ones, which is great. That's what different guests pick different actors. So the wheel decides. Just remember that. Cam doesn't decide. Happy to have you back, Cam, and let's get into the details, boys. Let's do this. Birthdays, August 15th. First and foremost, we've got Anthony Anderson, known for roles like The Departed, Hustle and Flow, Transformers, Harold and Kumar, Blackish, Law and Order, Scary Movie 3 and 4, and Malibu's Most Wanted. How old is Anthony Anderson?
What was that order of the list you just?
Yeah, dude.
This is going by the IMDb. And then
You threw me off with The Departed. I was like, he is in The Departed. You're right.
You didn't know?
He'd be fun to cover one day. I would love to cover Anthony Anderson.
You didn't say Kangaroo Jack. How dare you, sir? Anyway.
Which is the first thing I think of when I think it.
This man's got a filmography, is what I'm hearing. How old is Anthony?
50.
Oh, that's a good guess. Happy 53rd birthday, Anthony Anderson.
Oh, that's a nice touch right there. That's festive.
I'm going to go 55. He's getting up there.
You son of a gun. That's exactly what I was going to say. So I guess I'm going to go 54.
Ace with the last second win, he's turning 54.
Cam with the assist.
Just cocked James out of that. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Can't go high enough.
Second up, we have Ben Affleck, Batfleck, as he's otherwise known. Known for films like Argo, The Town, Gone Girl, Good Will Hunting, Batman, Clerks, Sum of All Fears, and the all-time favorite, Gigli. How old is Ben Affleck?
Oh, that's right.
This is how you do it. You start with the bangers, and you
Uh-huh.
end with the terrible stuff that they did.
That's what Warren did. I'm just bringing back
Is
a
it
good
not
old
Daredevil?
fashioned
We're not
Warren.
talking about that.
I didn't mean this man's in a lot of stuff, man. He's in a lot
All
of
the
stuff.
other bad movies from Hope Free.
Or Justin Bartha.
50.
No idea.
Mr. Jennifer Lopez is 58.
58?
I'm going to go 57. He's up there.
53 again.
Aubrey's going to take that when he's turned 52.
What?
It's both sides of me.
Guys, this is the theory right here. We put it together. Anthony Anderson is 54. He looks like he's 40. And Affleck is 52. He's younger than him, and he looks like he's 60. This is
How it works.
He's had a pretty stressful life in the love department.
it's valid.
Last but certainly not least, we've got Deborah Messing. Obviously most known for Will and Grace, The Wedding Date, Searching, Ned and Stacy, and The Mysteries of Laura. Mostly Will and Grace and The Wedding Date, but how old is Deborah Messing?
61.
Nice. He's got to be 55. This one.
Also known for the great underrated hit Smash.
Okay.
That's what I know her from.
Oh, there you go.
And she is obviously 24. Looks great.
What the
Must be new here, Cam.
Let's try to get 2 out of 3 tonight. I'm going to go 33.
James, you said 61?
Yep.
It doesn't matter because Deborah's turning 56, so Cam gets the last one.
Son of a gun.
Finally. All right.
Also, some good honorable mentions on this day. We had Jennifer Lawrence, former Munson. Shout out to J-Law. Natasha Henstridge, Linda Ellerby. Natasha Henstridge played Homegirl in Species. That's how you know her.
Mm-hmm.
9 yards, dude. Come on.
That's perfect.
Nailed it.
Linda Ellerby, and then Alejandro Inarritu, who Oscar-winning filmmaker, great filmmaker. So happy birthday to them and everybody else with a birthday on August 15th. We had 5 actors we threw on the wheel. I believe this is episode 105. The 5 actors were Sacha Baron Cohen, Anna Faris, J.B. Smoove, and Diane Keaton, but it didn't matter because the wheel selected Stephen Tobolowsky. He's got 292 credits on his resume. If you're keeping score at home on IMDb, that would make him the 17th most prolific actor of all time. Eric Roberts, who we've talked about a bunch, with his 600 credits, is like number 7. So there's still people that far surpass the Eric Roberts of the world. So needless to say, we're not going to talk about all 292 of Steven's credits. There's not enough time in the world to do that.
No.
But before we get into the details, we always start with a little actor trivia to see if James can stump us Fast and Furious style.
So, Cam, you are part of the initiated. You know how the game goes. But for those of you who are new listeners, I'm about to read 3 facts here, 2 of which are going to be true about the man of the hour, Stephen Tobolowsky. 1 of which is not going to be true about Stephen, but is going to be true about one of the many illustrious cast members of the Fast and Furious franchise. The gentlemen here are going to guess which one that is. Fact number 1. Was almost murdered by a complete stranger at a bar in New York City when the person mistook him for someone else, shot a gun at him, missed him, and hit the man standing next to him, severely injuring him. Fact number 2. A college experience of his was the basis of the inspiration behind the name of the band Radiohead. Fact number 3. Has actually had amnesia like what is famously portrayed in the movie Memento, where he wouldn't know what he was doing a few minutes after he had started it.
Good grief.
I have genuinely no idea, James.
I thought you were going to bring up he auditioned to be Ronald McDonald, and he didn't do that. So that takes me out of the game.
Still wouldn't be as cool as Bozo the Clown with David Arquette, just so we're on the same page. I got to go with fact 2, and that's ludicrous. Because one of his movies has inspired how Tesla refers to its speeds by saying the speed was ludicrous. So that's my guess. And we'll get into that movie when we get there.
I think this is one of those nights where James had too much content to work with, and all 3 are going to be true.
I'm giving you nothing on it, but these are good guesses so far.
This is going to be meaner than it should be.
Oh, no.
I'm going to go number 3. It's Ja Rule, which explains his rap career.
Oh, that was mean.
At least the second half of it.
I have one question for you, and that is, where is Ja?
At least the second half. The post-50 era.
That was entertaining, and then James chiming in with a very authentic and genuine, that was mean. That's going to make me laugh for a long time.
I'm going to make sure this stays in. He is a good rapper, so I don't really mean that. I'm going for the joke, and I just can't. He was a good rapper for a long time.
I agree.
You have him perplexed.
I just know I'm going to get it wrong, so I'll just go with A.
That's it. That's the fighting spirit.
I'm going to accept defeat.
This like whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter, so you're fine.
Yeah, correct, Amundo. Now you're speaking.
We'll go with the meanest one first. Has actually had amnesia. That was famously portrayed in the movie Memento, where he didn't know what he was doing a few minutes after he started. That is true, and that is actually part of the audition process that he used to sell Christopher Nolan on putting him in the role.
Wow.
He had an operation for kidney stones and received a experimental drug which was designed for bigger guys like himself, and so that nurses wouldn't have to keep picking up bigger patients. They could just order them to do it because they would forget that they had already done it. And him being 6'2", and he generously says, he's like, I was only like 230, sure. He said it would take like a week for it to flush out of his system after he got the surgery on his kidney stones. And the example he always referenced, and he did it in his audition, was it always felt like you had just been born and you had no idea what you were doing. And so it wasn't like the amnesia that you see in movies prior where it's like, well, how did I get here? What's going on? It's like being you're in the middle of something and you don't know how it happened. He said the 2 moments that were really difficult for him and his wife would have to help him all the time was when he was going to the bathroom and when he was eating or drinking. And so he's like, I wouldn't know if I had just started going to the bathroom or if I had just started eating or drinking. He's like, and finally, like my wife would have to be like, you've drank 4 glasses of water already. You have to stop. Or she's like, you flushed the toilet like 6 times, go to bed. And he's like, oh, yep, sorry, my bad. He's like, but he used that as his audition process. And Nolan's like, yes, that's exactly what we're going for. Let's do it.
Okay.
Fact number 2, college experience of his was the basis of the inspiration behind the name of the band Radiohead. That is true. So he went to SMU in Texas. He discovered that he had a unique talent for, quote, decoding others, which is kind of like a ESP ability that people still kind of reference, in which they try to like read others' tones. And it's so like what your colors are. It's a very spiritual ESP thing. He said the more that he did it, the more it kind of intruded into his life and he couldn't stop it. And it became kind of creepy and scary. So I just quit it completely. He shared that story while working with David Byrne on the movie True Stories. Mm-hmm. And when he told Byrne about that story, Byrne wrote the song Radiohead, in which he uses those exact examples in the lyrics. The band Radiohead chose their name based on that song. If so facto, our boy is the reason for the name of the band Radiohead.
Love it.
And fact number 1, was almost murdered by a complete stranger at a bar in NYC. So he was actually almost murdered twice in 1 week, but it wasn't in NYC. It was in Hartford, Connecticut, by different people. The first instance occurred when he was at a pub and a brawl broke out and started attacking his friend, and they were held at gunpoint before the man left. Later that same week, they went to get pizza next to that same pub where someone tried to stab him. He didn't get stabbed, luckily. And so, however, he was never actually shot at, unlike actor by the name of Jin Ouyang, a.k.a. MC Jin, who famously portrays Jimmy in Too Fast, Too Furious, who was shot at by a gangster in Chinatown who mistook him for someone who had slept with one of his fellow gang members' girlfriends. Aubrey, I looked up an MC Jin fact, and that man is an actual angel. This happened to him. I feel bad for him, but I had to share this fact with you.
Got him!
So disappointed. So disappointed.
I would have sworn the kidney stone story should have been something The Rock had happened to him.
Dude, when he shared that, I was like, what is this? Like, it sounds like bullshit. Because, Tobolowsky's like an incredible storyteller.
Oh, yeah. Incredible.
I looked it up, and sure enough, like, there are drugs that are like, yeah, of course. Like, we don't use it because it could be abused. And most people who use this kind of amnesia drug is like date rape stuff. It's like, so It is not widely used. It's like, but when our nurses are 100 pounds and can't move a bigger guy, like, yeah, it's been used before. I was like, damn, he was telling the truth. That's crazy.
He's a great storyteller. I listened to a podcast where he told a story about a woman that basically stole money from he and his wife, who was pretending to be an actor but then turns out she had a ton of passports and stuff. And I was hanging on every word he was telling this story. It was wild.
You guys, I went down a 2-hour rabbit hole of Tobolowsky stories and podcasts trying to find Stephen Tobolowsky's birthday party. It's just, the guy's incredible. His storytelling is amazing.
I was trying to share a link to the Primary Instinct storytelling documentary he hosted and produced, and every streaming service had literally pulled it. So,
oh man,
through eBay, I find a discount. I'm like, perfect. Just send me the disc. $10. That's a deal. I'm not paying $40.
That's great.
Like you guys say, he takes what could easily be mundane or even offensive, and he just boils it down to, do you hear me right now? How is such outrageous, absurd stuff like this happening? It's just able to break it down and just wink to the audience without actually having to wink.
Yeah.
He's just looking into your soul. It's like, if you're with me still, let's go down this rabbit hole.
Thanks, James.
Absolutely.
Case, tell us a little bit about his Snapshot and box office.
All right. Well, we've already established that he has a massive filmography, a lot of movies, and I'm incredibly thankful for the new spreadsheet format because it made this one a lot easier to put together. This is a tough story to tell with his box office numbers, primarily because of his role as a character actor. Cam was just saying, I'm never going to be going, oh, I'm going to go watch this movie just because Stephen Tobolowsky's in it. Now, I did rent his birthday party movie, but it was for research purposes, so I can deduct it on my taxes. There is no debating how prolific this guy is. Almost every time, he's one of the most memorable characters, regardless of how big his role is. So I think the best thing for us to do is let's just go ahead and jump into the numbers and see where our conversation goes. He is 49th in total box office, 96th in Star Meter, The next two were surprising to me. 97th in Critic ranking with a 43.9% from critics. 105th in fan ranking with 49.5%. 91st and 75 in two different box office metrics. In the most unfair box office snapshot score I've ever had to read, Stephen Tobolowsky ranks 104th out of 105.
Dang.
Like Kyle's rubrics, he has to stick to his guns.
Mhm.
I have to apply the scores consistently, and I have to trust the box office metrics that get spit out, and I don't like them. And I'm unhappy about that score, but I am, as people say, firm but fair.
Aubrey's teaching approach right there. What that is. Not or his coaching approach, maybe?
Nope, I'm a player's coach.
Oh, never mind. Okay. 104 out of 105. Who's 105? Just humor us.
We do have a brand new 105, and it is one of my favorites as well. So apparently, I have the shittiest taste of anybody in this podcast.
I mean, we knew this.
Well, don't worry. Chaz Palminteri is 103. So
Damn it.
slow down there, James. Second to last is Steven. And dead last is somebody who has captured the hearts and minds as a chess coach, Jim Belushi.
Belushi? Well,
Yeah. It kind of sucks, but at the same time, in all the videos and stories I've heard this guy tell, not only will this not bother him, but he would probably be entertained by this
he doesn't give a
and
shit.
somehow come up with a great story and tell about the night that the Munsons came out and he was 104th out of 105 in box office metrics.
All right, that's a good start. Appreciate you, Case.
Yeah, man.
First major role we're going to talk about is 87, so everything before 1987. So a little bit of the early life pieces with Stephen, and as always, James will either correct me or pepper in some pieces that he did in his research. So first and foremost, he was born in Dallas, Oak Cliff, which I believe is southwest of Dallas. I think about 20 minutes out. Is that what it is?
Oak Cliff?
Oak Cliff, yeah.
Yeah, straight south.
Straight south, so about 20 minutes south.
Yeah.
He had a childhood illness that stopped him from playing baseball, and he got his bachelor's from SMU, which James did mention, and got his master's from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign in 1975. And then there's like this crazy story about how he started a really bad band, was part of a really bad band in his 20s that just so happened to have Stevie Ray Vaughan, because Stevie Ray Vaughan was from his town, right?
I was going to put that there, but I was like, you know what? Kyle's found that one. I got to leave it because it's just such a cool story. I didn't want to waste a trivia thing on it.
The Fast and Furious actor was with Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah, imagine you start just like a garage band and you're like, yeah, we're pretty shitty. Yeah, our guitarist is pretty good though.
Yeah, he's like, we were not very good, but we had Stevie Ray Vaughan, which better than 99.7% of garage bands ever started.
Of course, yeah.
It was jarring the first time I was doing research and searching for Stephen Tobolowsky, and all I see are Stevie Ray Vaughan articles and videos and stories. I'm like, okay, I already love this guy, and now even more. I love this dude.
I think you like him because he's tall and bald. I think that's what this is.
Add it to the list, man. Add it to the list.
But who knows? The rating at the end.
Yeah, we'll find out. Everybody's got their own Munson meter here.
This is when McDonald's was launching the Ronald McDonald character, and they were doing a nationwide call for actors to audition for it. And he auditioned for it.
Really?
He did not get the part because the casting agent asked him if he could take the stage. And Tobolowsky thought, well, I'll impress you with my stage presence and talk about how great of an actor I am. And after he got done on this little monologue, the casting agent went, no, like I meant, do you have a hitch on your car so you can take the stage with you when you go places? And he said, yeah, I didn't get the job.
I listened to him in a different interview, and they asked him, like, had you always wanted to be an actor? And he said he had, but not for the reasons you would think. He was so obsessed with like monster movies and things like that when he was a kid. Shout out to Aubrey in the monster movie fandom. That he was like, I just wanted to be in the world where these monsters lived. He's like, and acting just seemed like the place to like do that, which I thought was kind of a cool origin story for why you get into acting. At his heart, he's a playwright. He comes from the world of theater. That's what he spent a lot of his early career in before he obviously transitioned to being in every television show ever made. But one step at a time, it all kind of started with that of the movies he was obsessed with as a kid growing up in the 50s and 60s.
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But his first IMDb role that you'll find on there is a movie, probably a TV movie called Keep My Grave Open. He played a character named Robert. That was his first role ever in 1977. So he was 26 when he got his first break in the entertainment world, at least on screen. He was doing theater before that, is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to jump a little bit here. So basically between like 84 and 87, he was on 99 TV shows. A couple episodes here and there or a single episode. If you look up TV series mentions on IMDb of that 292, 134 of them are television shows.
Yeah.
If you name a TV show that you would like, there's, I'd say, a 50-50 chance he was in it between mid 80s and today, honestly.
One quick movie I think is worth pointing out. Did you ever hear of the movie The Philadelphia Experiment?
I think so.
And it's why I started watching the Y Files, because they did an episode on how true the Philadelphia Experiment story is. Basically, there's this conspiracy theory that the United States government was experimenting with teleportation and time travel. And it was called the Philadelphia Experiment. The only reason I bring it up is he's got a full head of hair.
That's right.
It's impressive.
What year was that?
1984.
Okay.
For anybody that's against movie remakes, I want them to watch the 1984 version of the Philadelphia Experiment and try to convince me that this movie should not be remade, because it's a fascinating story and it wasn't delivered all that well. But he's got a full head of hair, and I love it.
That was his fourth role ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how these actors start out. They go for the bad movie night-worthy movies.
Well, it did star Michael Pare, the Case household. We were firmly a Michael Pare household. He was one of the best actors that I knew growing up, and so obviously I liked the movie.
Okay, so I'll put it on my watch list right now just for you. I'm doing it. We already did it. The button's been clicked. We're moving on. Another 84 film. He was in Swing Shift. He played two characters in that alongside Holly Hunter. I know Swing Shift has some pop culture relevance there in the mid 80s. And then Case, I think you mentioned True Stories, right? From 1986, or James did. James mentioned.
Yeah, so he co-wrote that with David Byrne from Talking Heads.
Oh yeah, man, David Byrne's an odd dude, man. Being able to sit down with the two of them would have been a treat.
It would have, yeah.
That movie has really high ratings. It's like a 79-83 split on Rotten Tomatoes too. It's very well regarded. It's amazing how a lot of the physical film has disappeared over the years.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked at all.
Best Buy, we're coming for you.
Well, that's going to take us to what we're going to call his first major role. If those listening at home, I'm putting this in air quotes. It's less about his role in it because he's not in it much. It's just the cultural phenomenon that is Spaceballs, and that's a good marker to start. This was the second time I've seen it. I watched this twice to prepare for this podcast for reasons that won't be mentioned here. But I will say the first time I ever saw Spaceballs, I did not like it. Now, I was younger, unrefined as a film viewer, and I'm not a Star Wars guy. So I think a lot of the humor and the parody was lost on me when I watched it at, I think it was 21, 22. It was probably right after college that I watched it. And I was like, this isn't for me. Years and years later, I'm glad I revisited it for this. So getting a chance to watch this was pretty cool.
For a while, it was kind of the go-to prior to Galaxy Quest of how to make a sci-fi horror parody. And just
yeah,
but still have something to follow around instead of, if you haven't seen that movie, it doesn't make a lick of sense. It was more as here's this character, he's an embodiment of all these other characters, and they're making fun of genre tropes and everything else, and Mel Brooks' usual, dirty inside jokes. It's man,
yep,
so much stuff happening.
Yeah, because he had tackled a lot of other genres before this, and he was like, you know what, we're going to go after the sci-fi feature there in the late 80s and 1987.
I quote it every day.
Now I watch this and laugh my ass off to the scene where they say the screen is jammed. It's just an amazing...
what are we doing now? Now!
Raspberry. And then they're jumping to ludicrous speed was the reference I made earlier to Ludicrous. Welcome to Tesla.
It's the ultimate party movie. Someone has seen this if they can quote it before the character says the popular line. I would always, for the longest time, when considering a project, be like, we're not doing this for money. We're doing this for a shitload of money.
As Cam mentioned, written and directed by Mel Brooks, considered by many to be like the funniest guy ever. He got George Lucas's permission by agreeing not to produce any memorabilia, which explains the constant jokes in the movie about Spaceballs memorabilia at every possible turn.
Merchandise.
Because that was the idea, is like, you can't produce anything from it, but you can make fun of my movie all you want. There's so much behind the scenes with this production. There's the inside jokes that I can't even begin to cover. Like, the IMDb trivia for this movie is insanely long.
Yeah.
Because of all the weird production stories.
John Hurt gets killed by a alien and he goes, not again.
Exactly. Like John Hurt realizing that he should have gotten a paycheck for that day, even though he did for free. Didn't realize like exactly what he was agreeing to. Stephen plays the captain of the guard. He first appears at the hour 2 mark. He has a little bit of an accent in the film. It's kind of fun to see. His presence is less about how much screen time he had, which wasn't much. I think it was like 2 scenes total, and more about the cultural significance of the film. So, and to commemorate this film, I'll echo the great Mick Moranis and say, I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes, and that's you guys.
Well done, sir.
So I'll open up to you all. What are your thoughts on Spaceballs?
I remember thinking fondly of this movie because it was a vehicle that Rick Moranis star in. I thought that was great because he was such a side character in so many other funny movies. I don't remember a lot of the bits and gags that well right now, but I do remember Rick Moranis having that giant Darth Vader helmet was hilarious.
Big helmet.
Big helmet.
Yeah, big helmet.
I was very excited to watch this movie.
Uh-oh.
Of the list of movies, this was the second most excited I was to watch a movie. Spaceballs is something that I feel like I've seen it already because I'm familiar with a lot of the stuff that's, in it and around it and the jokes and stuff like that. I've never turned on a movie so fast. I was so hyped to start this. It was the first movie I watched in prep. I was very excited. And I turned it off within 20 minutes.
Damn. Oh, shit.
It was probably like a couple of minutes after like the pizza alien or whatever.
Pizza
Hut. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a couple minutes after that, and I was just like, nah, this ain't it. It's not for me.
You were like 22-year-old Kyle watching it. Like, I don't get it. It's not for me.
Yeah. I really genuinely don't get it. Parodies like this are very hit or miss. At least for me, they're very hit or miss.
Yeah.
And it's quick to get out on one.
You think it's maybe because you didn't make it to the Stephen Tobolowsky scene? I don't know.
Let me tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not sitting through 2 hours of this movie.
You'd have to make it to the hour mark. You'd have to make it to hour 2.
That's when it really starts to kick in. It goes ludicrous speed at that point.
2 hours in is when it really kicks in.
And Mel Brooks has a very distinct tone to his storytelling.
Mhm.
I find him to be one of the people you're like, I really like this movie, or I really don't like this movie. I don't think Mel Brooks lets you sit in the, yeah, it was okay. Like, and I kind of appreciate that about him too, though.
You either love or hate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, only a couple of years between then and our next review. So first and foremost, a movie I know Aubrey was very excited. It was like the first thing he mentioned that he was like, I'm pumped to watch. So I'm guessing it's number 1 on his list comparatively number 2, Spaceballs. And that is Mississippi Burning. He plays Clayton alongside Willem Dafoe. So a movie we talked about 70 episodes ago. He's a local businessman. Another air quote comment. Local businessman.
Oh, yeah.
And he's great in this movie.
He is really good in this. It's weird to say that I was really excited to watch this movie. The context for me being so excited to watch this movie and the laughter is that I watched this movie when I was like early teenager.
Whoa. Okay.
I don't know why.
No, I don't either.
No idea why this happened, but it was kind of burned in my memory that this movie was very intense.
Oh, yeah.
And good.
Oh, yeah.
So revisiting this, it was like watching it for the first time. This movie is near perfect. It's amazing. Gene Hackman might be the greatest actor I've ever seen. And Stephen Tobolowsky's, it's an interesting role. It's an interesting one for him to come in and play.
Yeah.
Especially early in his career. I commend him for that because like
You could get pigeonholed.
it's the kind of thing that could tie you down. Yeah.
There was about 2,000 people on set, and a third of them were card-carrying Klans members.
Damn.
So he was just given the first part of his speech, where it's just very casual, and he's just telling a story. And then it turns, and he riles the crowd up. Well, the director was supposed to stop him, call cut, and then they were going to clear the stage. He was going to deliver, the really hateful lines to only the crew.
Mm.
But again, he's just so charismatic in the way he delivers things. He's going and he's like, and I'm to the end of the part of the script where I know we're supposed to cut, but he doesn't say anything. So I think he knows something I don't know. So then he starts carrying on. And all of a sudden the crowd starts to get into it. And like they were going bananas. And in the story he tells, and I won't do it justice, it's in his birthday party movie. There's a really touching story that he tells about how there was a young kid on the set that really kind of helped him put some things in perspective. And I wouldn't do it justice if I took it out of context, but that was supposed to be cut and filmed completely differently. And so there's a lot of genuine emotion from the audience that is occurring because they are responding to him telling these lines that audience were not supposed to hear. Because when you're watching it, he's capturing the character pretty effectively, and it's frightening.
He does a great job with this character.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys. It's worth watching. Obviously, over dramatize the feds as the heroes, but
Naturally.
right, there is some Hollywoodizing, whitewashing, but the Alan Parker's skill set is mainly in just he knows how very much able to open up these difficult dialogues and just recreate a lot of the overall mishaps that happened on those unfaithful nights. And like you say, you know, this cast is just so careful with all these different colorful people they're playing. And, Michael Rooker's in there as one of the suspects also. And, but it's so funny. It's like, when doing research, I was like, I'm not surprised he's in there, but who did he play? And when you brought that back to me, he's like, I know exactly what scene you're talking about. So I think that is the sign of some pure dedication on everyone's part. But kudos to him for realizing, hey, crowd here, they're not too civil. I don't want to actually start an accidental mob riot here.
This movie ruined Michael Rooker's career.
Really?
Well, dude.
You can't see Michael Rooker as anything but an asshole villain after this movie.
He kind of has only played that since.
He's always played a hick.
Until he got into Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
That's what.
But even then,
knows.
he was still kind of like a villain.
He's a scumbag in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a scumbag.
The most you would see is he was a sleazy cop. That's as good as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Him sharing his car with Cole Trickle in Days of Thunder is the only redeeming thing I can think of from his career. And I like Michael Rooker. I think he's an incredible actor. But this movie tainted the roles he was going to get.
This speaks to his performance. Is that character is a really hard character to play, but it's also an immensely important one.
Yeah,
because you get all the on the nose stuff that you kind of expect you're going to get. It's the more menacing stuff behind the more overt racism that really adds the weight. He brings that, even just in his presence, before he really even says anything. Just like how he moves, he carries that really well, which is a hard thing to do. This movie kind of astonished me because I feel like it's one of those that was significantly ahead of its time.
Oh yeah.
It also holds no place in history because this movie couldn't be made now.
Yep.
That's a good point.
The thing is too many white people. And I think that's a shame because a movie like this needs to be made because there's layers to these types of stories. And a lot of what goes on in here is really important to kind of take in. It was awesome to watch this movie, but also kind of sad because it's just like, I don't know how many more of these I'll ever see.
Yeah.
It could backfire easily. There could have been a producer not speaking the same language. They could have glamorized. I mean, Tobolowsky could have gotten the wrong cue and said, oh, I'm going to play this as a comic book villain. I'm like, no. This is historical. You got to play it with realism. You know?
Yep. Wasn't there a scene where Tobolowsky was getting interviewed? He was like projecting this like sympathetic, like, you guys should feel sorry for us because these federal agents have taken over our town and like we're the victims here. Like, I just remember that being like, this character is a psychopath.
Yep.
To go off what Aubrey said, this is one of like your, at least in my mind, like one of my first introductions to the bad guy not being the stereotypical bad guy where he's maybe like a brooding idiot who's very physical. This guy's more of like a salesman who is choosing his words wisely, and you don't necessarily see that in media when it comes to someone who's evil, where it's like he's really trying to gain sympathy and he's picking and choosing his words. He's like, oh, I'm just an everyman and this, that, and the other thing. And then you're like, this is a bad person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he's a Stan.
yeah, you just don't normally see that.
This movie does a great job of explaining the complexities of that time, and even any kind of situation around any kind of social issue that's very turbulent, how helping could not help. And Willem Dafoe plays that really well.
Yep.
Gene Hackman highlights that really well, of how, and the movie just does a great job of painting that picture of like, we're here to help and we have the right intentions, and how it can make things a million times worse.
Yeah.
The white savior. Yeah.
Yeah, even though this movie centers around a lot of white people trying to do the right thing and save everybody, it kind of skewers that idea of like, this is how dangerous it actually is to do this.
And Aubrey, I'm glad you brought up Willem Dafoe. And it just goes to show how great Tobolosky's role is in this movie. We've talked as much about Clayton Townley's character in this movie as we did William Dafoe's character, who was the co-star of this movie.
Yep.
It's a great performance.
It's a great performance.
This was my first movie I watched to prepare for this, and I was like, oh shit, okay. All right, I see you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Comes out the gate. It's a perfect example of Stephen, of like, he does the job, and a lot of times you have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
You just know it's that guy who infuriated you or made you laugh, and he's completely okay with being that guy.
He's in there with heavyweights.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And not like heavyweight. He's in there with like super heavyweights. He's in there with goats.
Yeah.
Like Willem Dafoe, Gene Hackman, Francis McDormand. Like, he's in there going with the best of the best.
Yep.
To walk away and not think about him is not bad. It's not an indictment on his performance.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
1989, he plays Judd in Great Balls of Fire, I believe is a biopic about Jerry Lee Lewis.
And yeah, I don't remember who he played out of.
Judd, don't you know? Cam, come on, man. It's Judd. All right, next up, we have our largest critic gap, which is a movie called Breaking In. He plays the district attorney. Cam has this, and it's from 1989.
Are you guys familiar with any of the work of John Sayles?
Yeah.
Eight Men Out, Men of War, and various other just, Brother from Another Planet. Just it makes sense why he's here, because given what we've seen in his earlier work, Sayles is speaking the same language as all the performers in this. He almost always stages his indie films as kind of a stage play. Roger Ebert liked this more than most anyone else. I'm kind of with the audience on this. I thought it was all right, but not really anything to seek out. Tobolowsky has a blink and a miss it moment as a district attorney, but kudos to him for working alongside various other talents. It was a good change of pace for Burt Reynolds. Unfortunately, he really sunk this movie for me. He did not look like he wanted to be there. He was at that stage of his career, and it's a shame because it does have some interesting just insights into blue collar life and people getting themselves into sticky situations.
It's a pretty significant gap between critics and audiences, but there weren't many other options to pick from. Does he play it pretty straight, Cam? As a district attorney? Like,
he plays it straight. Unfortunately, I would not put this on his top 10 roles. It's just because it's kind of was one of those roles anyone could have played it.
At any time did he use the phrase, "You can't handle the truth"?
Sadly, no.
Oh, shit.
This was in need of reading the Bible, reading the law book or some shit. But,
That would have been awesome.
so yeah, it's an odd curiosity, but I can't give it a full recommend. But he was good in it.
Okay.
So,
The late 80s is a weird time in movies.
right.
They were jump-starting the superhero movies because of Batman. The only other thing of high production value that was getting made, it feels like, is like comedies.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
So movies that we just talked about with Mississippi Burning, like really serious, well put together movies in the late 80s are hard to come by.
This is where marketing screws us up for the next decade, where no one's sure what they want to see in the theater versus at the video store or on movie channels.
you know what I think of when I think of Stephen Tobolowsky? Erotic thrillers. Because that man is sex appeal incarnate.
Kyle, that's the funniest line I've ever heard anybody say on this.
Oh, please.
We only have one role between the last review and the next review, and that is his role as Jeweler in The Grifters, which I think is a small role. It's a movie we covered on the Angelica Houston episode. I believe Case reviewed it, and I remember it's got very high ratings.
Yeah, I did. I vaguely remember him in it, but I would be lying if I tried to bring up anything that he did.
Exactly.
And that's the unofficial name of this podcast.
Of course.
Episode 105, That Guy, starring Cam Sully.
Yes, exactly. Lowest critic score is a movie called Funny About Love. He plays a character named Hugo. It's from 1990, and Aubrey drew this one. He had a really great review of Soul on the last episode, and now he gets Funny About Love. Let's hear what he's got to say.
This will be the exact opposite of that review. The IMDb plot summary of this: an NYC cartoonist, Duffy, meets a bad cappuccino maker, Chef Meg, and falls in love. She moves in with him, marries him, but they have problems having a baby. That is this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Gene Wilder plays Duffy. Stephen Tobolowsky plays his friend. And he's in like a handful of scenes. He's in like the opening scene, which is, he is kind of funny in it, but the scene itself is not.
Mhm.
This movie is absolutely terrible. I don't reference Rotten Tomatoes hardly ever, not seriously. Gave it a 0. That is accurate. This movie is not good. Gene Wilder is shockingly bad.
Yeah.
This movie has tone issues. This movie has thematic issues. This movie has pacing issues. This movie has screenwriting issues. And it could have actually stood to have Stephen Tobolowsky in the movie a lot more because he is the best part. And he is the only part that is funny. I am not trying to be harsh just to be harsh. I do not enjoy shitting on movies. This movie was rough to watch. My main issue is they try to take something like the problems that a married couple has in conceiving, and they try to make it funny, which I'm here for, and they fail to make it funny or land on the seriousness of it. So ultimately you just have odd jokes around a tragic situation and Gene Wilder not being a good husband. It's tough.
Yeah.
Don't watch this movie.
It really is rough. I remember Siskel and Ebert's review, and they're like, how does such a great cast, a great actor turned director, a relatable subject matter, and it just doesn't take off.
Leonard Nimoy is the director of this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. And Aubrey hit on is like there's a lot of interaction, but the tone just kind of doesn't really shift anywhere. It's just like, okay.
The movie's based on an article by Bob Greene. And Bob Greene is famous for being basically the only biographer Michael Jordan liked. So the guy's basically a sports writer, and this gets turned into a feature-length movie.
Was this during a lull in Wilder's career? Like, what would compel him to take this?
I'm wondering if it's not on the back end of his career.
I wonder if it was a good idea, if it was pitched to him. And
Yeah.
it's a vehicle for him to do whatever he wants. Because my takeaway after about 5 minutes is that he's doing a lot. He's getting after it. And so it's one of those where like they pitched it to him. It probably sounded like a good idea and it just didn't come together.
He's only got one other movie.
He doesn't have any significant movies after this one. It's some TV shows, but no movies after this.
I think this was the beginning of the end for his acting career.
Which is tough. Like, I mean, I know I kind of took a dump on this movie, but it was sad to see that. Like, I was excited to see, Gene Wilder, and it was sad to see a movie that just never really came together. Because that's really all that it is. It's not offensively bad. It just didn't come together. It's not good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 8 years until our next review after that. 91, Thelma and Louise. He played Max, a role that we've talked about a few times with Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon, the two main leads in this one. I rewatched about half of it on the plane, and I did not encounter Steven, so someone needs to tell me when he shows up in the movie, because I got to the part where they just were meeting up with Brad Pitt, and then I stopped watching after that. Not because it's a bad movie, it's just like the flight ended.
I don't remember him in this either.
No.
This is where it's going to get very cryptic from here on, where it's like we've seen these movies, but we can't always necessarily recall the scene. There's just so many ensemble movies he's in from this point on.
I would just like to reiterate from the last time we talked about this, Thelma and Louise, one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Classic.
Great movie.
Hero, 1992, another one alongside Gina Davis. It's this weird everyday hero concept where you're like, fake saving someone from a bus and then goes on this
He
whole
becomes a media sensation.
media sensation around it. Again, I don't remember his role as Wallace in this movie, but I remember the movie. I don't think it's a very good movie, but it's at least a memorable movie. A movie that's friggin' awesome is Sneakers, where he plays Dr. Warner Brandis, 1992.
Yep.
The last movie I watched to prepare for this. Worth the $4 that I rented. It is a really awesome concoction of fun actors like Sidney Poitier, Robert Redford, David Strathairn, obviously Stephen Tobolowsky.
River Phoenix.
It's River Phoenix.
It's also a spy movie, and
Steven's in Act 3 because he's the scientist who's in that part of the building that they're trying to steal the chip thing from.
It really is intricate. It could have easily, flunked or been too much for an audience of the 90s to process. To Carl's point, I think it's just very engaging. It just, the dialogue clicks and all the characters are quirky and you want to know more of what's on their mind. And Dan Aykroyd is really good at being funny and delivering exposition.
Yeah.
And while stretching himself a bit. And just a mix of veteran and newer actors at that time.
I haven't seen this in quite some time. 30 years later, does it still hold up?
Unless you think the Bechdel test is important, because it certainly doesn't pass that. But if you're looking for a movie with really good men actors in the early 90s, you get a lot worse than Sneakers. To be honest. I mean, Sidney Poitier is fantastic because he has this little scene at the end. He's like, you want to know why I got kicked out of the FBI? My anger problem. And just proceeds to just beat the shit out of two guys with a shotgun. It's awesome. Robert Redford's the main character, but they got guys like Ben Kingsley who are second in line and are in every right the lead in most movies they're in. But Robert Redford's just charm incarnate in this film.
Yeah.
Tobolowsky plays a goober. Like, he's just a goofy goober of a scientist who gets really mad when he finds out he got gamed by a woman who's taking advantage of him.
Yes.
But it's a big character in the role. In the third act, he's kind of the center of the story. Also 92, single white female, he plays Mitchell, a movie where he plays a very creepy boss alongside Jane Fonda and Jennifer Jason Leigh, who pretends to be Jane Fonda's character in this movie. Not bad.
No.
Honestly, did not hate it. It's kind of an oddball film. And Tobolowsky's memorable. He is a creepy bastard in this movie.
When this came out, it was a real unique thriller concept.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's a creative approach to telling, or to having a story told about in real life identity theft.
Yeah, like when Jennifer Jason Leigh changes her appearance to look exactly like Jane Fonda, I went, oh, that movie, she went there.
Yeah.
Oh, this is getting good.
Yeah.
Again, another memorable one, though, from the early 90s. I think his character definitely stands out. Something a little bit different. Basic Instinct, 1992, plays Dr. Lamont. I did not get a chance to rewatch this. I don't think people go for Stephen Tobolowsky.
Oh, no.
They don't go to Basic Instinct for him.
I was trying to think of who he was.
He's the psychiatrist, I think.
So I was trying to think if he was like the group of psychiatrists that are talking to her, but all I can remember is Newman.
Yeah.
Who starts sweating as soon as she opens her legs. He's just like sweating. And that's all I can think of. I can't remember him from that scene.
He's basically one of the other psychologist guys, but
Okay.
It is one of the movies that comes up first on his list. And he shows a few scenes in some of the other documentaries he's in. And you're like, oh, that's right. That is that scene. But like you say, there's so many people in that movie. You're like, and it's not the main draw. So you're like, what? Wait, which scene?
And again, I mean, this is a really unique take on a suspense thriller. I mean, having the female lead being potentially the murderer was unique. I don't know if it stayed up to the test of time in terms of it being a good quality, but I thought it was creative.
Yep.
I haven't gone through many of Verhoeven's movies. He's got a lot of great Dutch movies to his name, but unfortunately that just doesn't always translate into some of his US films, which is why he kind of has hit and misses near the end of his Hollywood run, which is a shame because he always inserts a lot of satire and everything, and you don't know how much of it is the audiences taking it out of context or him needing to explain it a little better.
I think this movie holds up just fine if you know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
They don't make movies like this anymore. So
That's true.
if you're just like, oh, random movie, let's watch it, it probably won't work because you'll be like, what the hell is this? But if you know, like, okay, erotic thrillers were a thing, there is a craft to them, which this movie does really well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
And I think it would hold up just fine. I think this is an enjoyable movie.
Mm-hmm.
What was the last successful erotic thriller that was produced?
So let me text Rigby. He can tell me. Real quick.
He'll say anything with Lou Diamond Phillips in it.
He only did 2, and they were for Showtime. He's good. 50 Shades, and those aren't even good.
That doesn't count.
That's not this. though.
Saltburn, maybe? Does that count?
No, that's more like Knives Out.
Oh, Gone Girl, maybe?
Yeah.
I think Gone Girl classifies. It might be more crime because there's a lot. I don't know. I think Gone Girl might classify. My mind was going to like all the way back to like Unfaithful. I feel like it's been a long time since they made one of these.
There you go.
Are you talking about Diane Lane? Diane
It's a dying genre for sure.
So when Skinemax took over, it was all downhill from there, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
According to IMDb, the number one erotic thriller of all time is Basic Instinct.
Yeah.
Not by ratings, but just like fans. And then Gone Girl, Body Double,
Yeah.
Crimes of Passion, and Dress to Kill. And then Wild Things, which Wild Things is a great erotic
Wild Things.
There you go.
They have-
Cruel Intentions would be on that list.
thriller. Number 8, Single White Female.
There you go.
Let's go.
Who would have thought that Stephen Tobolowsky he'd become the king of erotic thrillers? I love him. This he's crushing it.
Hey, Jim Belushi would
matter,
like to have
I
a
think.
word. Jim Belushi starred in an erotic thriller.
Yes, he did.
If you've listened to this guy tell any stories, he's one of the funniest people I've ever seen in my life.
His comedic timing is really good.
Outside of Spaceballs, we haven't seen any comedies.
The Gene Wilder movie is a comedy.
Funny About Love.
Yeah.
It is listed as a comedy.
But I guess my point is he's crushing
Your
in
point, Stan.
dramatic and thriller roles instead of
Yes.
his strengths, which would be comedic acting.
Yeah, this is a good point.
Well, let's talk about that. His most noteworthy role, the role that everybody probably mentions to him, Groundhog Day, Ned Ryerson, 1993, alongside Annie McDowell. So we talked about this once.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's just such a perfect bit. He's like, this is what I get quoted at me in grocery stores all the time. Everyone thinks they're very original because they say this. It's just like a perfect bit, especially for that movie, since he's the introduction to the first character where you're like, okay, so this is happening over and over again. And he just goes to extremes to get away from this man.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they spoof this scene in like a Geico or AT&T ad years ago or something?
They did, yeah. For a Super Bowl commercial, I think.
Lay's chips.
Lay's, okay, that's what it
Yeah.
is. And
So he was on a different movie set with Kurt Fuller, another character actor that people won't recognize his name but would recognize his face. And he got the call from Harold Ramis saying, "Hey, I want you to come, do the audition." So he drove 2 hours, came back to the set that he was staying with Kurt Fuller, and Kurt Fuller asked him like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Blah blah. He said, "I'm just gonna go do an audition." And I guess they were talking, and Kurt was like, "So we got anything big coming up?" And Stephen was like, "I don't really want to make it weird. Like the last thing you want to hear from another actor is how well things are going." So he's like, the usual. And he asked Kurt, and Kurt's like, "Yeah, I'm actually like really close to getting a role in this new Bill Murray movie called Groundhog Day."
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, well, hope that goes well. And then, so I guess for weeks now, Kurt had been reading with Bill. He had been reading with Bill Murray, going through things. And then the next day, Ramis called him again and said, "Hey, I need you to come read." So we drove another 2 hours back to LA to read with him again. And then later that day, he got the call that he got the job. Like he went back to the set, and again, he's still staying with Kurt Fuller. And Kurt's agent had called him to tell him that Stephen had gotten the role.
Wow.
And he was like, that was one of the more awkward conversations I've ever had with a fellow actor after that. And I guess Kurt went with him to the premiere, and Kurt was like, he basically said, "You crushed it. Like, I'm glad you got the job," but he said it was really awkward.
I just don't think he could have pulled off the repeated performance, but different character. Like the repeated performance that Tobolowsky pulls off in this, where you get to see him say the same line, 50 times. Like it would have been tough for him to pull off.
Tobolowsky had that attention-getting kind of look. So it was like,
Anybody watch this for the podcast?
I did. First time watch.
Oh, really?
really?
Oh,
Great movie. I got nothing for you on this one. Great movie. This movie has been held up in just the stuff that I've read, kind of in my own little algorithm of like perfect screenplays, like really good screenwriting.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't use it as that. The movie is great. It's not really a critique. It's just I came in with the highest of expectations. Great movie. No notes. I loved it.
When his character comes on, is the scene just replayed, or is he acting that scene out differently every single time?
It's different. Yeah.
Differently, because Bill Murray's acting it differently.
Yeah, I think he acts it out differently every time.
It's masterful then, what he was able to do in this movie.
Got to feel like the Twilight Zone when you're in a role like that. I mean, I guess the memorizing of your lines is, it's a little bit easier probably.
There's that, plus the continuity. Do you punch me over here in this take, or do you... Yeah.
Not the last time you're going to feel in the Twilight Zone.
You're also like acting next to one of the most famously funny yet difficult to work with actors in Bill Murray, where he is, one of the ad-lib kings, and you're this, trained stage actor who's been in serious roles, who in your personal life is clearly very funny, but really hasn't gotten to show it too much.
Yeah.
And so this is probably like a relief to be like, I'm just going to bounce off a Bill and see what works and what doesn't work. And I finally get to do what I like.
He's so memorable in that role because of his exuberance.
It's almost childlike.
Just to maintain that level of energy every shot has to be insane.
He is genuinely excited to see Bill Murray's character. Every time he sees it.
He's a tactician, man. Seeing roles like this remind you how good Stephen is at the craft, even if nobody knows his name.
Well, it was a good warm-up for him to work with another difficult actor coming up.
Is that a good transition? You want to go to Glimmer Man? Because I think you put this in the show notes.
I was the one who put Glimmer Man on there.
All right, go ahead.
Please tell me you saw the interview.
Tobolowsky plays a serial killer in this movie, and he's supposed to be killed by Steven Seagal. The only issue that they ran into is Seagal had a spiritual awakening on the first day of shooting and decided his character no longer should kill people in any of the movies that he made, which is perfect because they were filming the scene where he kills Tobolowsky on day one. The director told this to Steven, was like, hey, you have to convince Seagal to kill you. Like, don't talk to him about not killing you. Like, it has to happen. And so he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go talk to this like very intimidating, alpha male. And he's like, I convince him that like, my character's a serial killer. And not only is your character kind of doing society a favor, but you're doing, my character a favor because my character no longer wants to be alive. And he like convinced Seagal to kill him in the scene, only to have the director contact him a few months later and be like, hey, we got a problem. Seagal's just been ad-libbing that he didn't kill you in every scene, like throughout the entire filming of the movie. He just keeps saying that I'm really happy I didn't kill that guy. And like, so we just got to come up with audio where you don't die. And Tobolowsky thought it was so funny because he's like, if you watch the movie, he shoots me in the chest and pretty much my heart explodes. He's like, but if you listen to the audio, there's like a pause and he's like, my lifeless corpse is on the ground. And I say, hey, come finish me off. Don't let me live. I don't want to live. He's like, and we just dubbed that in afterwards.
Bless anybody who had to stand with this tyrant on any movie.
It's so funny, dude.
You know who I bet Steven Seagal didn't try all that stuff with? DMX.
That's right. He knew better. We have different. I take no greater joy than a Steven Seagal sighting on this podcast. I love it.
So that is a line to be remembered forever, Case. Tell you what. How about the story of two dogs and a cat that got lost for the second time in San Francisco? And in this case, Steven plays a dog named Bando.
Ooh.
Among a band of also lost dogs that don't trust humans.
I have a 4.5-year-old. We have a cat. He loves this cat. He came home today.
Oh no.
Being gone for an hour and asked me how the cat was doing while he was gone.
Aww.
This is the type of person that I showed this movie to. I even gave him a fake little kid job. James, you know what I'm talking about? Hey, I gotta work. I need you to watch this movie and tell me everything you can about it because it's really important.
Aww.
He goes, okay. And he's sitting there watching this movie as hard as he can.
Oh my God.
15 minutes in, my wife goes, Killian, liking this movie? He goes, nope.
Yep.
He's the target audience too.
If you can't get him, you can't get anybody.
Yeah.
Was it the changing of the voice actor of Shadow from movie to 1 to 2?
Yeah.
What was it?
It's the continuity of Shadow's voice actor for sure.
He's really big on that.
This is definitely that gray area where kid movies start just like ending. Like the prerequisite is you got to start off with a tragedy, make everyone cry their eyes out,
Yeah.
and then nothing but fart jokes the rest of the movie. And you're like,
Yeah.
hey,
Wow.
I guess that's a good
Maybe I missed it.
combo.
The downside is Chase, voiced by Michael J. Fox, is outrageously annoying.
Chance.
Yeah.
Get it right.
Chance, my bad. Chance.
Yeah.
Outrageously annoying in this movie.
Yes.
And I just was sad for Sally Fields because I'm like, Sally Fields is one of the greats.
Sally Fields, voiced and sassy.
What is she doing here?
Just very
What is she
sad.
doing here?
Is this your son's first DNF? That's exciting.
No chance. No chance.
No.
It's easier to narrow him down the other way. Yeah. What did get finished?
Yeah, he's got a couple that have hurt my heart. He gave up on Alice in Wonderland real quick.
All right. Going forward, along with Case's VR viewing, I need Killian's DNF for the Munsons episode prep. I need that every time.
I can give it to you. This kid watches a lot of movies. He watches a lot of movies, and he was not feeling Homeward Bound 2.
A little context for the listeners. DNF stands for did not finish.
I'm glad you all indulged my Homeward Bound fun there. Thank you. That was fun. Enjoyable. I watched that second after Mississippi Burning. Talk about a tonal difference.
Yeah.
Takes place in the same universe.
So another movie that I watched, and you go to Disney Plus, and I didn't even realize Disney Plus did this. If you go to try to watch Mr. Magoo, it will give you a disclaimer before you watch it that says the jokes in this movie were terrible then. They're still terrible now, but we feel it's important that this media is available. So please enjoy the film.
What?
What?
That's Mr. Magoo.
Does it really say that?
Yeah, legit. They're like, this is a pretty offensive movie. Sorry. Still bad.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Here's the thing. Were they talking about a lack of entertainment, or were they talking about just agreeing with the critics? Yep, we made a shitty movie for Disney. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to go with cultural insensitivity on this one. Stephen Tobolowsky is dressed like Aladdin at one point in time. It's bad.
I thought Kyle was lying. He's not. It is very clearly stated when you look it up online. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not intended towards ableist, towards blind people or nearsighted.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's Mr. Magoo as he plays Agent Stupak, which is a pretty significant role in the movie. And it is wildly offensive from start to finish by all characters, especially Leslie Nielsen's character as Mr. Magoo.
Yeah.
The 90s were wild, baby. Mr. Magoo doesn't help on the back end of the 90s, too. Do you guys remember that scene from Billy Madison where he says, everybody here that heard you is now dumber for having heard you? That is Mr. Magoo in movie format.
At no point.
Did you make a coherent statement? Our largest audience gap is a movie called Black Dog. He plays Agent McLaren from 1998, and James has it.
When I looked up what this movie looked like prior, when we first found out we were going to cover him, and I saw what the main actor was and what the cover of the movie was, I was like, this has a chance to be the exact type of cheesy 90 movie that I thoroughly enjoy. And I was proven correct. So Black Dog is a 1998 action thriller. It's starring Patrick Swayze.
Sorry, real quick. It's the Patrick Swayze.
Sir Patrick Swayze.
Roadhouse.
Stephen Tobolowsky. Randy Travis, that's correct, and Meatloaf, that's also correct. It has a 14% critic score and a 60% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's directed by Kevin Hooks, and it's silly, cheesy, and amusing way to pass 90 minutes. It's like a lighthearted late 90s action flick where it's like, hey, do you want to see big trucks and bad guys that are kind of, indiscernible and they're like, I don't know, they're doing drugs or moving guns, who knows, but they're bad. But it's watchable. It's so the plot is ex-convict who's played by Swayze. He's a truck driver with a suspended license for vehicular manslaughter. So that means he can never drive a truck again. He's working in a garage when his boss realizes that, hey, I heard you used to be a great driver. Why don't you do this one last no questions asked trip and I'll pay you extra money? What happens is the script becomes predictable, but it's pretty hysterical because like I instantly knew I was in. So Swayze's offered by his boss $10K to drive a truck with clearly illegal stuff in it while he's on parole. And he says no, because he's such an upstanding guy now. But then lo and behold, he goes home that night and he finds out his family's going to have to sell their house and move into a shelter if he doesn't find $9,000 immediately. Just perfect timing, like perfect 90s nonsense. He ends up having to like protect his truck from all sorts of marauding bad guys, and the characters are cliche and one-dimensional, but like serve their purpose well enough. There's a bunch of good one-liners, like Swayze ends up running over one bad guy, and he just like looks and like deadpan, not sad at all. He goes, "Ew, roadkill," and I was like, "Hell yeah, like, hell yeah, got him."
That's what you get. Director of Prison Break and Passenger 57. It's the kind of B-grade fun movie.
Dude, I didn't even realize. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Like you don't have to think too hard while watching this one.
If you don't like it, it's not going to make worst of all time. You'll just be like, I should give it to my boys.
That's what, like, this is the movie you watch on like a Saturday afternoon when you're 14.
Yep.
With your dad, and you're like, yeah, that was fine.
Next.
Yeah. Exactly. And so it moves along at a brisk pace. There's bad guys, there's good guys, there's guys kind of caught in the middle. I thought it was pretty fun. I'm firmly on the audience side at 60%. Tobolowsky plays an ATF agent, and he's got a pretty funny recurring bit in that he keeps teasing the FBI agents involved in the investigation by poking fun at things that were pretty ahead of their time at that time, which like their fragile masculinity. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, oh, you need to work through your anger at therapy because it's coming through in the workplace, which is
how
funny.
you really feel.
Exactly, playing off like the classic like alpha male angry FBI agent, very ahead of its time.
Yeah,
the movie gives off, like in my mind, gave off major Con Air vibes, which I love Con Air. Oh. And then I looked it up.
It's definitely in that same mindset,
right?
Yeah,
100% in that same mindset. And Swayze actually turned down Nicolas Cage's role in Con Air to do this film.
What?
Yeah,
man.
I looked up the other people. Apparently, Cage was way low on the list for Con Air, which is crazy because they can't imagine that role with anyone else. But it was like Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze. Eventually ended with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, they picked the right guy.
Of course. Absolutely, of course.
Nicolas Cage is always the right guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just so we're on the same page.
James, I have two comments about this movie, and I'll see if you agree with it. Number one, I think this only adds to the legend of Patrick Swayze to expand his range. You know, we've seen him as a bouncer.
Of course.
We've seen him as a surfer. We've seen him as a dancer. And now we see him as a truck driver. I mean, come on. What does this guy got to do to get some Oscars? He should get the Lifetime Achievement Award. And then I do have a theory on why the audience ranking is so high. I think it's because Rotten Tomatoes counted all of my votes. I just kept submitting over. I just kept hitting refresh, and it just kept pumping up.
That's Black Dog, baby.
Go watch it.
Yeah, it was, dude. It was good. It's fun.
Go watch it. That's what I'm hearing.
That's the best review of that movie ever.
Yeah, glowing recommendation. Patrick Swayze.
I thought you guys were going to roast that movie, but it's all good.
I love that Case treats Rotten Tomatoes like voting for the MLB All-Star Game. That was my takeaway from that.
I just got to pepper the voters box.
All right. 2 years before our last review here, between 99 and 2000, so before and after the millennium. Stephen is busy during this time. He has 21 credits between 99 and 2000. So, like, at this point, while it may not be making money, well, they may not have the highest critic or audience score, my dude is getting casted in all the things during this time. Lots of TV, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But he's in a movie that was nominated for 8 Oscars, and this is the one I didn't get to that I'm actually really sad I didn't get to. Not because of Steven, but The Insider, I've heard, is an incredible film. He plays Eric.
I had seen this before. It was one of those, I didn't think it was top line Michael Mann, but Russell Crowe is just absolutely disappears into this role as the whistleblower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pacino.
Kudos to Tobolowsky, though. Like, he's not just playing one of the bosses who is trying to get the guy fired and just saying, what will it take? But I mean, the man fucking made it into the trailer. Mm-hmm. So that is a career step up. You know, that's not just like any other character actor where you've seen it many times and you know the scene. It's like, no, just about everybody in this movie had a key scene in all the advertising.
Pretty darn good.
Was Patrick Swayze in this?
No.
I don't think the Swayze train made it into this. All right, highest critic to our last review of the night before we kind of push straight through to present, and that is Case with Christopher Nolan's first film in Memento, and he played Sammy.
Am I the only one that have been spelling this movie wrong for the last 20-some years?
Memento?
How'd you spell it?
I thought it was Momento.
Momentum. Okay.
No, I thought it was Momento, not Memento.
You're thinking of Mentos, the
pimento
fresh maker.
bean,
Completely.
I don't know.
All right. Memento is a 2000 neo-noir psychological thriller written and directed by one of the bigs, Christopher Nolan.
Yep.
The movie is actually based on the short story Memento Mori that was written by Nolan's brother, Jonathan, which I thought was a pretty cool
He came up.
little go at the backstory. Movie stars Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss, Joe Pantoliano, Joey Pants,
I was waiting.
the star of our show, Stephen Tobolowsky. And the story is told in a nonlinear alternative narrative, which is really well done.
Yeah.
It's told in color and it's told in black and white. The black and white scenes are being told in the chronological order. The color scenes are being told in reverse order. They come together at the very end of the movie to really clear up and create the narrative. We've talked about the phrase when it comes to filmmaking as ambitious. This is the true definition of ambitious filmmaking. In my opinion, it was masterfully done. I really enjoyed this movie. You know, I've seen it before and I watched it again and it was a VR viewing. So it had a little bit more pop to it, right?
Yeah.
Tobolosky plays Sammy Jenkins, who is an amnesia patient. Him and his wife are trying to collect insurance money due to his condition, while Guy Pearce plays Lenny, who is an insurance adjuster, claims adjuster, something to do with the insurance side of things. And he denies the claim and basically telling Tobolosky's wife, like, I mean, there's really nothing wrong with him. And that, like, flips her out because she loves her husband and she's trying to work her way through the emotional baggage that her husband has amnesia.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what James said earlier, with him experiencing this, Tobolowsky kills it in this role as the amnesia patient. And this role is a masterclass in character acting. And that not only is his performance is good, but it's so good that it actually adds depth to the main character situation. As he's going through amnesia himself, he wrestles with kind of diminishing Tobolowsky's or Sammy's characters, or the character having amnesia, and it really screws with him. And it's really an interesting kind of a subplot to this movie.
He's basically everything the hero we later find out isn't so much the hero. It isn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's the fall guy.
Yeah.
If that were to happen to him. Yeah.
He plays this so well that all the other characters in this movie are kind of like almost cartoonish, and they're so just high octane that Tobolowsky's character really gives a human element to this story to help it, like, the viewers not view this as like a superhero movie. It's a really good movie, and I would give myself a headache going deeply into the plot.
It was definitely a pulp movie.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this, go watch it. However, what I would not recommend doing is watching this in 3 or 4 settings, because you will have a really hard time picking up from where you left off.
Yeah.
Don't do what I did. Start it on one device in one room and then try to go back to it on a different device in a different room, because if it didn't save you progress,
Yes.
you're going to spend all day rewinding and fast forwarding to figure out where the hell I was. Which Carrie-Anne Moss scene was I in? Because I cannot remember or find it.
And she's great in this as well. I mean, everybody's great. Everybody is well casted. Everybody hits on their roles. It's a really good movie. I enjoyed rewatching this. in my opinion, it still holds up.
And compared to other movies that get ripped off, I very rarely have seen anyone try to recreate this. Like very few have done that. Where it's like reverse chronological order.
When he first got the first draft of the script to this, he said, as an actor, normally a first draft of a script is like 120 pages or less, and then production companies will tinker with it and try to break it down even further before they start writing it in and making it bigger. He's like, and when I first got this one, he's like, it was 300 pages. He's like, in an actor's world, might as well have been like me trying to read The Odyssey. Like, he's like, I didn't want to read this at all. But he'd promised someone who suggested it to him that he would read it. He's like, and I made it about halfway through before I screamed out, like, God damn it. And his wife asked, like, what, is it terrible? You're wasting your time? He's like, no, it might be the best script I've ever read, but there's just no way he lands this ending. But now I have to read the next 150 pages, which
dedication, my man.
That's funny.
And he's like, I finished the next 150. He's like, and immediately I was like, well, that's the best script I ever read. I really want this role. And he just annoyed Christopher Nolan until he could get the role.
It's not easy to do, irritating Christopher Nolan. I don't recommend doing that.
Case, I was surprised you even took a crack at the plot to this movie. When you got as far as you did, I was like, ooh, that's actually pretty good so far. What is he going to give up? Because I would have given up a long time ago.
Yeah. Well done.
My plot would have been like, there's a guy who can't remember the last 5 minutes of his life every 5 minutes. And let me tell you, he goes on a journey.
The interesting thing is I really didn't talk about the main character except for once. So I don't know that I got very far.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Anything else on Memento, boys?
Memento's great.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch it if you haven't seen it.
Go watch it. Okay, 2001. Between then and the rest of his career. And again, there's a lot more than what we're going to talk about here. But first and foremost, Mornings at 7, he gets a Tony Award nomination for Best Performance on the Stage Side, that's pretty cool. He hasn't really gotten any major awards love for his film or TV work, but he does have a Tony nom, which is pretty rare in 105 episodes of who we've covered.
So we're skipping Freddy Got Fingered completely.
We probably should, but we don't have to.
The way God intended.
All I will say is, Aubrey, I thought that was going to be the worst ranked movie, but fortunately, he survived that movie because most of his scenes got deleted. So we're good.
I wouldn't have watched that. I love this podcast.
You are wise.
But I would have been like, I would have turned it on and then DNF'd the mess out of that one.
How about a movie that's a lot better than Freddy Got Fingered, and that's an adaptation, plays Ranger Steve. Basically, isn't this like the life of Charlie Kaufman? It's like a biopic, kind of.
I thought every movie was the life of Charlie Kaufman.
So I didn't watch this because it says on IMDb that he got cut out of it.
I definitely don't remember anyone besides Nick Cage and his twin in it. So
I didn't watch this because this has been one that's kind of been on my list for first watches that I've been waiting to just watch, and I was really excited to watch it.
I think you're right because it doesn't show up on his IMDb, but it is on his Rotten Tomatoes, and so that would make sense. He probably did get cut. So yeah, well, until we cover somebody else in adaptation, you'll get your chance to learn the Charlie Kaufman story, is my understanding of it. I watched it years ago, but it's a Kaufman movie. It's confusing. It's a Kaufman film. Welcome to every story he's ever told.
Welcome to Mars.
Yeah. Freaky Friday 2003, alongside Jamie Lee Curtis, he plays the teacher who's super vindictive against Lindsay Lohan's character. He asked Jamie Lee Curtis out on a date, I guess, back in high school, and she turned him down, and he's just an asshole now to her daughter.
Most controversial Munsons episode. Yes, I know.
Full representation of the profession.
Right? Yeah. I agree. Case, talk to us about your tracking down of Stephen Tobolowsky's birthday party from 2005.
The premise of this project is that the filmmaker one time was at a party and everybody at the party became fixated and were just hanging on every word as Stephen Tobolowsky told a story. And so then what he did was on his birthday, he filmed an entire day of Stephen Tobolowsky basically going through his day, getting ready for the party and at the party, telling nothing but stories. And it is so enjoyable to watch. It has a very Curb Your Enthusiasm feel without the quirky subplots, right?
Nice.
You're just kind of following this guy around, and he tells really, really interesting stories. And the whole movie starts out how he basically got bullied by a dolphin, The guy is just such a sweetheart, so entertaining, really funny, and this really just kind of catches you on it. I didn't get all the way through to kind of see how it wrapped up because we had to record, but I certainly enjoyed it.
I wish he had done some stand-up, given his ability to start.
Yeah, I was thinking, how come we haven't seen like a one-man show? This guy's perfect for a one-man show, but it cost me $1 on Prime. So if you got some time to kill and you got a spare buck hanging around and you just want to have a nice, easy, feel-good watch, this I would highly recommend. In fact, I'm going to finish watching it as soon as we get done recording.
Do you have a ringing endorsement for Wild Hogs from 2007 where he plays Charlie, one of the Rangers?
I read his autobiography, The Dangerous Animals Club, and he talked about how that was one of the first movies where he's basically a featured extra.
Yep.
He and a bunch of other character actors were making quirky jokes behind the scenes because they had 0 lines in the movie, and the director didn't know what he wanted.
Yeah, it's I don't think Wild Hogs has aged well over time.
It definitely has not aged well.
I refuse to watch this.
Yes.
And it was one of the most accessible movies on his list when I would search on Apple. And I just kept saying no.
It's everywhere.
I just would click back on the newsroom episode instead.
Heroes. He plays Bob Bishop, 11 episodes between 2007 and 2008. One of his recurring characters.
I didn't keep up with it. I knew he was in it.
Hey, the first season of Heroes is really good. It's got a bad ending, but that's okay. He's in the first season. His character can turn things into gold. And one thing that I found fascinating about Heroes is they tried to do an actual approach to how people would use their powers. And naturally, since he could turn things into gold, he just uses it to become incredibly wealthy and powerful, and does not acknowledge that he has powers, as anyone would do if they had that power. Naturally, his character kind of takes a bad turn. But one thing I found fascinating is he's also the father in this show of former Munson Kristen Bell.
Oh, yeah.
Who's very bad in this show. She ends up mocking this role in Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah.
But she's pretty bad in this. His character, spoiler alert, eventually gets killed by the big bad guy. And they were supposed to have a big fight scene, but they had to rewrite it because Stephen actually been horseback riding and fallen off a horse and broke his neck in a few separate places. And so they just rewrote it so that the bad guy snuck in and killed him. No fight scene.
Wow.
No fight scene.
It happened. No fight scene for you.
It was the second season that was really bad, right? And the writer strike killed it.
It's the prime example of a show that was hey, the wheels are already in motion. We're going to use a skeleton crew because there's too much money behind this already. And
we got to keep going.
Yeah. And the ratings are wow, one of the best shows on TV. The ending was a little weird. And then it's next season's disaster. It's oh, what happens? We were just making shit up as we went. Oh, no writers. Got it.
Unfortunate. That show had promise.
Yeah.
He became one of us in 2009. He started the Tobolosky Files podcast, which was way ahead of its game in the podcast world.
Yeah.
Back when podcasts, everyone's what's that?
Guy's a great storyteller, and he was one of the first ones to do it. So shout out to the grandfather of podcasting, Stephen Tobolowsky.
I heard about that podcast, and I've heard about him quite a bit because of the only movie podcast I really listened to, the Filmcast. He was either on it or he knows him because he's worked with him before. So I heard about it from that, but I haven't listened to it yet. So I don't know if it's any good.
Too many films and then 292 to watch to be listening to the podcast. That's why we rely on people like Cam.
Yeah.
Cam listens to that stuff.
That's right.
When you ask him what he's most known for, he always talks about Groundhog Day, but he says young people recognize him from his role as Sandy in Glee. He was on that show for 8 episodes and between 2009 and 2011.
Yeah, it was a lucrative role, much like fellow Munson Corey Wallace. I'm not a Ryan Murphy guy, and I felt like his writing, specifically of this character, was pretty trite. They didn't know what they wanted to do with the character. Is he a creep? Is he a drug dealer? Well, let's just have him do random shit and weird people out. And it didn't work for any of the comedy the show had built up. Again, you're getting recognized by people on the street. You're doing your job.
So. There you go. They don't know his name, but boy, do they recognize him. He played an ominous voice as Alan in the movie Buried from 2010. I'd never seen it before with Ryan Reynolds. I was actually quite shocked. I was so compelled for a film that's filmed completely in a box.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
His character is the biggest asshole. I mean, there's a lot of assholes.
The word.
He's worse than the terrorist. I'm just going to say, he's worse than the terrorist. He convinces Ryan to record something so they could take away liability for paying for his death to his wife. And it is truly terrible.
Wow.
In all fairness, I mean, this was one of the many movies which was trying to be like Panic Room or Phone Booth.
Mhm.
But it is always confusing when you look back at it. You'll see just about like 20 different actors who are all voices, and you're like, wait, who they play? Oh.
Yep.
Voiceovers. You know?
Really creative shots in this movie that I'll remember for a long time. Ryan Reynolds, just impressive.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's underseen by his fans, and you just like, if you want to see what he can do, just like straight up drama, like please see this one.
You need to watch this.
This movie's really good.
It's the anti-Hollywood film because it keeps leading you into thinking it's going to be a happy ending. It is not. It's truly.
And it's so funny.
It truly takes you to no. He's fucked. He's fucked. Like
Absolutely in the worst way.
Oh my god.
In the worst way.
The hope is evaporated with the last breath when he says, "Sorry, man. We thought it was you. It's somebody completely different." Oh god.
Brutal.
Cut to credits.
It was one of those rare tragic movies where it's like, okay, but this is earned. Like, there's enough build up. It didn't just feel like you rewrote it. Unfortunately, many people who complain about Hollywood being formulaic don't show up for movies like this. It's like, well, god damn it, go out and check this movie out and then tell us it's still formulaic.
It doesn't cheapen the story.
It's earned and it feels right. I think that's where it angers you, but it feels like it's probably what would happen here.
This is not a superhero film. He gets caught up in a geopolitical conflict, and they do the basic minimum to try to get him out because they're like, "Dog, what we want to tell you from the start is there's not much we can do to help you."
Sorry, dude.
Sorry, my guy.
Fuck.
Sorry, my guy. Anyways, Californication. He plays Stu. 30 episodes of that between 2011 and 2014. A big show for him.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea that character was based off an actual infamous talent producer, but apparently the writers worked on another Showtime show, White Famous, and he plays that same character. I'm like, what the fuck? Talk about unofficial crossover. That's cool.
On the website CalifornicationFandom.com, it gives the snapshot of his character, and it says, portrayed by Stephen Tobolowsky, Stuart Stu Beggs is a recurring character in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th seasons of Californication. He is a big Hollywood producer known by many women for his large penis.
Big show for him, though. A lot of one-episode pieces, other than One Day at a Time. That's his longest-running TV show character he's had in his career.
It may be easy to forget, but that show was huge. I mean, that was David Duchovny at 10 out of 10.
I knew coworkers who were like hooked on it. They're like, it doesn't make any sense, but I gotta tune in. I'm like, okay, tell me more.
Over the couple of years, the ones to note here, a few more voice roles in Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, played Uncle Ub, and then Mr. Peabody and Sherman, played Principal Purdy, alongside Allison Janney, Stanley Tucci, Dennis Haysbert. Again, he's got a good voice for animated projects. He's not on the level of the Keith Davids of the world, but his voice is pretty darn good.
He's trying, man. He's trying.
He's pretty good. He's got a good voice for that kind of stuff, so it's not a shock he's been cast in a bunch of these big animated films. Not on the Disney Pixar side, though. I haven't seen him cross over there.
Surprisingly, yeah.
You would think he would fit in really well into that world. Honestly, his voice, I think, would lend well.
As we go on, you'll find other ones. There's like, this is as close as he gets to even a Family Guy or South Park type role.
And then Silicon Valley, he plays Jack, 17 episodes of that.
Oh, yeah, dude. I think Silicon Valley's hilarious. So it just plays off of classic Silicon Valley stereotypes, which this was 15 years ago. Somehow they're even more true today. They've only gotten more ridiculous. He's a CEO who's like incredibly charming and intelligent. Come to find out, he's only focused on how best to drive up stock prices. And one of the funniest scenes is he flies to China to tell the company's called Hooli, which is essentially Google, to tell the Google factory workers in China that despite what their boss says, they're not actually at capacity and they can actually work harder if they follow his business model. And as he's saying that to the factory workers, it like smash cuts to a breaking news story, and it's him being held hostage by the staff. And he's like looking out like a chained window, and he's like, I just want to make it very clear, I haven't been harmed. And if Google would just meet the employee's very reasonable demands, I will be released. It's so fucking funny. Like,
so it's a variation on all the other roles he's done where he's just like, okay, you're trying to clean this up and you're making this worse.
He's great in it, and he plays off of the like
incompetent, but well, me
100%. Yeah. It's all about the money, so who cares? I'll do the best thing to get the money out of this. And it's like, nope, you're now a hostage.
Mm-hmm.
This was T.J. Miller, right?
Yeah, Mike Judge written. Yeah,
before he was officially canceled, and then they like essentially kill him off in the show.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, they give his character a pretty grisly demise out of nowhere.
Oh, One Day at a Time. Has anyone seen that? Berkowitz.
I haven't. It's his most prolific in terms of just short of the Goldbergs, which he did 43 episodes of.
Norman Lear. That's all you need to know. It's very progressive, but very witty sitcom.
Netflix, right?
Yes. Archer, he plays Robert, the ex-wife of Lana, who's a libertarian shithead.
Oh, yeah.
And this was another one. I saw that on his credits. I'm like, I know he's in it. I know I've heard his voice. Oh, that's the asshole he played.
We just picked to the end of his career, but there's so much TV work there that, like, for example, these are just the notable mentions that I'll run through, and there's a lot more. But again, big shows that he's been on at some point, whether it's one episode or 20.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Buffy, Seinfeld, Malcolm in the Middle, West Wing, According to Jim, Will and Grace, CSI, The Closer, Reba, Curb, Deadwood, Desperate Housewives, Entourage, Community, Justified, Mini Project, Law & Order SVU, and so much more. The guy's been in literally everything. He has stayed so busy throughout his career in between all these films doing television work. And he has never had to do anything but act since he started that career.
Yeah.
As a roundup of those, he unfortunately didn't get to be on Mini Project much. They wrote out his character. He was fine from what from all of the show that I've seen. You guys would like him as his crooked character on Justified, probably. I think his best role, though, has got to be on Deadwood as the county commissioner, because he gets very physical and just is completely unrecognizable. Much like Mississippi Burning, he gets to play around with the Southern twang a bit, and it's cool to see him as an authority figure for once, as opposed to a shithead in the background.
He speaks very highly of that Deadwood experience from the interviews I saw.
He just really grew as an actor there, is like, because prior to that, he was always just, again, the dipshit. And it's like, here you actually you believe everything he's saying. I work for the city. You're going to go out. Buffy, he kind of got screwed on. He was originally the principal, and then they recasted him. You guys would probably like his guest spots on Seinfeld. He's in the Heart Attack episode as the con healer. And you would probably love his episode of Community, where he plays a stupid professor who has thought, let's have a critical analysis class dedicated to TV's Who's the Boss. I really dug, it's not on here, the X-Files had a great spin-off show that was way more comedic in nature, kind of like Sneakers, Kyle. It was called The Lone Gunman. And I thought what was really interesting about that, for so young in his career, he got to be the main focus of that episode as just a man who just thought he had been abducted by aliens, and he's in a weird just love triangle with all these circus freaks. Again,
2001.
Yeah, that was a show that was pretty solid, but came out at the worst possible time because, long story short, the pilot was very similar to 9/11. That is all I will say.
Yep.
Again, just all these different roles, just man, going to town.
My man is prolific. Yeah, that is for sure. Okay. All right. Well, we've reached the top of the mountain. Case, what do you got for top performances? I'm very interested to see what you were able to drag up for this.
Well, speaking of prolific, I thought I should find a prolific list maker to help categorize the star of our show's career. I found a website by the name of kevinbrockmeyer.com. And you may say, well, who's Kevin Brockmeyer? Well, Kevin Brockmeyer happens to be author of the book, The Ghost Variations. Most notably, Kevin has over 700 lists on his website.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
Okay, top 5 William Maxwell books, top 5 Donald Harrington books, top 5 MCU movies, top 5 Miyazaki movies, top 10 movies about children, top 5 favorite end of the world books. I mean, 700 lists this guy has, and we are blessed.
You might want to forward that Miyazaki list. That'd be awesome.
He has a list titled 10 favorite Stephen Tobolowsky movies. And he writes, which is why I ended up picking it, another character actor and quote unquote, that guy who made his biggest impression as Ned Ryerson in Groundhog Day and whose face you almost certainly recognize. These are Kevin Brockmeyer's 10 favorite movies in which he's appeared. Came out August 20th, 2021, and they are all movies.
I just want to say this is what's wrong with the internet and entertainment writing right now.
700 list, Aubrey.
There's no way that this guy did proper prep for 700 lists.
700 lists.
You don't know if Brockmeyer's built like that.
In fact, I don't know, but I'm confident.
Maybe Kevin Brockmeyer is like a collective of like 100 people.
It's an aggregator.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you, Case, that you were able to find this.
Okay. Who wants to take a shot?
Thelma and Louise.
Thelma and Louise is number 8.
Trash list.
I'm the insider, baby.
The Insider is number 3.
Okay, good. Good. Sneakers.
Be on there, baby.
Sneakers is not on the list.
Oh,
Mississippi Burning.
Has to be.
Yeah, not on the list. I'm sorry.
What?
Yeah, this guy's list is trash. I told you he could not properly do the research necessary for this.
Basic Instinct.
Basic Instinct is not on the list.
Damn.
Groundhog's Day.
Groundhog Day is number 1.
Okay, they did one thing right.
Spaceballs.
Yeah, Spaceballs.
Spaceballs is not on the list.
What? Memento.
Memento is number 2.
Redemption, maybe? Mr. Magoo? More redemption, maybe?
And no, Kyle, no to yours. We briefly talked about 3 of them that are on here, and we did not talk about 3 that are on here.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's not a shock.
One of them was one of my favorite things to talk about.
All right, single white female. Throw that on there.
Single white female is not on the list.
What the hell?
Glimmer Man with Steven Seagal.
If this was craigcase.com/10 favorite Stephen Tobolowsky movies, yeah, it would definitely be on there, but it is not. Sorry.
Wild Hogs, just for the hell of it.
No.
Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous.
No.
I did watch that to prep for this, by the way. So I appreciate that shout out. Black Dog.
Black Dog, you're getting close, Kyle, but it is not on the list.
What the hell?
Think of the conspiracy movie.
We just came
Not
out.
a conspiracy movie, but Little Black Book.
I'd watch that too.
Little Black Book is not on the list.
I watched Little Black Book.
Win a Date with Tad Hamilton.
I did not watch that.
I like this movie.
Not on the list.
Buried.
Buried is not on the list. I'm just going to tell you what we missed.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
Number 4, The Grifters.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that was going to be my next one.
In it.
Number 5, the conspiracy movie about time travel and craziness, The Philadelphia Experiment.
Oh,
Interesting.
Number 6, Love Liza.
with PSH.
Yep.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
Number 7, Bossa Nova. Number 9, Hero.
Interesting.
And number 10, which I think is a very interesting one because of the director, Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
Oh, wow. They had to pick the most infamous John Carpenter film. No, please don't.
I thought about watching that.
I did too. I love John Carpenter.
I know, but everyone likes John Carpenter, but no, not even he likes that movie.
KevinBrockmeyer.com, the home of over 700 lists, one of which was Stephen Tobolowsky's.
Did Kevin Brockmeyer listen to the podcast and pay you for a plug? Is that what
I
happened?
think so. My God.
I hope it shuts down because of all the traffic we got sent that way.
Hey, shout out to you, Kevin.
Way to go, Kevin. You made it, buddy. You made it big time.
We did our best to get to Steven, and we only covered 5 of those 10 picks. So, like 292, that's just a lot.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Shout out to Miss Congeniality and Little Black Book, Aubrey. I appreciate you on those. It vindicates me for having watched those to prep for this episode. So
Always looking out.
that's right, baby. Well, let's get into the Munson Meter. What we do, we rate every actor on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors that could include anything from longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, acting range, awards, other talents, personal life, comedic chops, box office success, and anything else that matters to us as Munsons. This time we're going to start with Aubrey.
So this is hard. Character actors are always hard, especially ones that are as prolific as this, just because it's hard for me to get a gauge on the thing that I'm actually looking for, because it's clear that he's a good actor. There's no real debate that he's a good actor. You know, he wouldn't have as much work as he has, and as a character actor, you can kind of put their, like, how good they are succinctly in how much work they do. And clearly, he does a lot of work. One of my big issues, of which there's a handful that made this really hard for me, is I've seen a lot of things that he's been in.
Yeah.
And I don't remember him in hardly any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Deadwood. Didn't remember that he was in that.
Mm-hmm.
Even these smaller movies, Win a Day with Tad Hamilton, I've seen that movie. I like that movie. I remember that movie very well. Had no idea he was in that movie. Like, I've seen a lot of the things he's been in his TV spots, his one-offs, and I don't remember that he's in them. It doesn't mean he's bad, but as a character actor, it is something that I would think I would remember more of. I also didn't see him star in anything where he was the guy. Everything I saw, he had a very small role.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even a major supporting role. It was something small. And so I struggle with where I would put him on this list, because I do think he is a good actor. Would I put him up there with some of the best people that I've ranked in this list? No. When I was looking at the scores I put before, I saw Christine Baranski's score that I gave, which I always think about because I love Christine Baranski and I think that Christine Baranski is a great actor, and I gave her a score that did not reflect how good of an actor I think that she is. Seymour Cassell got the same exact score. He's a good actor. He did a lot of different things that I saw being good. I have a hard time placing him above those because he didn't do some of the things that they've done. So I have him in a similar space, which I think is good company because he is a very good actor. But I have him as a 64.
I agree with Aubrey. It's hard to score him because he is one of the most prolific character actors to ever grace the screen, 17th most credits of all time. His impact on theater, TV, and film can't be understated, but again, even if he's not a huge role, his presence and his voice stands out in most of the roles. Like when you watch Mississippi Burning, you could see this guy's got dramatic chops. He is funny, clearly, and he stayed busy. For you to have that many credits and not spend your entire career in B movies like Eric Roberts, you got to be pretty good at your craft, right? He is. There were a few stories. The one that he talked about when he discussed working with Al Pacino on a film and how Pacino would have to like go in disguise to cross Central Park to get to his car because he can't go anywhere without being stopped by people. Tobolowsky's like, that was refreshing for me because I don't live that life. I just go to the grocery store and people are like, hey, I kind of recognize you, but they think he's like their teacher from high school or something like that. They don't know him as anything but Ned Ryerson from the movie. So like he seems to truly enjoy his nonchalant fame where people vaguely remember him from a thing, probably because he's been getting steady money his entire career. When you do enough TV shows like that over time, any ounce of like, ooh, I wish I had done more goes to the wayside when he's like, I just get to do this thing I've been wanting to do since I was a kid. And I'm steady and I'm doing really cool projects and I'm happy with that. And he seems like a very happy married man, like family life is great. And he's doing passion projects. So shout out to him. He can do funny. He can do dramatic, recurring characters. He's got some range. He's no heartthrob. Throw it out there. He's not going to be the lead in an erotic thriller. Sorry, Case. Or at least not one that's memorable. I saw your face there. And he's funny, dude. His timing's good. I got to give him props for being a playwright, a podcaster, writer. That link I sent you guys for winning that guy award from one of the late night shows for being the dude that people recognize. It's like, other than his Tony nom, it's the only like semi-decent award he's gotten. And by semi-decent, I mean clearly a joke more than anything else. But Kurt Fuller was also one of the candidates for that role and didn't get it again. So he's cut Kurt Fuller twice in his career.
It was so funny how at the end he's like, I'm so sorry I won this over you guy. Sorry, I don't know your name.
He leans straight right into the bit, which I appreciate. So with all that, I'm going to give him a 68. I feel pretty good about that. Cam, you're up.
Alrighty. So much like many of the other character actors we've covered, he's an ensemble guy first thing, not really a leading man. I've gathered 4 modes that he often portrays on screen. He's often either the straight face, the crazy guy, the flamboyant guy or the whiny guy. And I feel like it often really depends on how competent the actual movie is versus whether he's giving the role what it deserves.
Yeah.
He's basically at the 6th stage of his career right now. I don't think he can do any wrong, but to make a bigger impression at this point, I think he just needs to just land just a bigger like movie or sitcom role. It's been very fortunate to avoid I didn't see any directed-video or cheesy made-for-TV shit on his resume. I was so surprised. Almost everybody
Seriously.
hits a dent in the road or has a movie that they swear off the resume. Of the indie films that he did have, again, it goes back to his theater background. He just likes to tell reasonable historical dramas and everything. He's been blessed to be on professional sets. I haven't heard of anything where he got in a fight with an A-lister or anything.
Yeah.
I won't seek everything out that he's in. Compared to other that guys, he is just a godsend with his staging, his acting training, and changing his voice around once in a while, especially to affect the comedic dialogue or drama on display. I'm going to give him a 62 out of 100.
Case.
I think I echo a lot of what you guys have talked about. I'll just add some extra notes. You know, you got to think about people like Stevie Vaughan, Gene Hackman, Susan Sarandon, Sharon Stone, Steven Seagal, Patrick Swayze. I mean, this guy has been in the ring with some of the greatest performers of many generations, and he has held his own, period. I just find it refreshing. And, you know, and to even elaborate further on what we talked about with Steven Seagal, not only did he not have an altercation with an A-list celebrity, he Jedi mind tricked Steven Seagal into doing the right thing. And that alone puts you in legendary status. He told a story on one of the videos I watched that I think is really profound in how he views his craft. Long story short, he was waiting for a ride to set. Cab driver came up and said, "Hey, are you the jet fighter I'm supposed to pick up?" The guy goes, "Nope." So the cab driver ran inside, and the jet pilot come walking out, and he looks at me, he goes, "Are you my cab driver?" And he goes, "Nope." He just went inside, and he said, "Right there, I knew what it meant to be a character actor." In that one moment, I could be two distinctly different people, and I truly think that that's how he approaches his career, and I think it's really admirable. I'm really having a hard time quantifying. So I think the best thing I can do is align him with another legend, and that's Jim Belushi, who he starred in According to Jim with. And I'm going to give him a 60.
James, round us out.
Yeah, I think his range is pretty impressive, and I think I like him best in comedic roles. He's a naturally funny storyteller, and you could tell he uses that natural ability into his comedic roles, and he just always makes me laugh. You know, he's most famous for Groundhog's Day, even though he's kind of the butt of that joke. I think he crushes it. But yeah, character actor, I think he's one of the best. I compared him to other scores with other character actors I've given, similar to kind of how Aubrey had mentioned, and I give him a 66.
All right. And that gives Stephen Tobolowsky a 64 on the dot, which ties him with Regina Hall at 78th place. Actually, is a three-way tie with Regina Hall and Daryl Hannah.
Wow.
Justice for Regina Hall. Like, no disrespect, but justice for Regina Hall.
I think that score was before her last two movies came out, which did really well. I bet her score would be a little higher.
I'll be frank. I thought you guys were going to fucking hate this guy. And
Oh, no.
Nah, man.
Dude, he was good.
for real, like, you guys are unforgiving about the movies we do.
Game recognized game, man. He's a good actor.
He was good in pretty much everything I saw him
Yeah,
in.
good actor.
All right. I thought you guys were going to be like, he sucks or he's good, but that movie. You know, I thought Freddy Got Fingered was going to wreck this crowd.
Nah, Mr. Magoo wrecked this crowd. Yeah. Aubrey, what has he got coming?
He's got 5 things, including a short that came out earlier this year. That would be the 6th thing. But really, there's one of note, Freaky Friday 2.
Yep.
So for everybody that's been waiting for the Lindsay Lohan resurgence, and by everybody, James.
Oh my God.
It's happening. Freaky Friday 2 is supposed to come out in 2025.
Finally.
I don't even want to know what this movie's gonna be. That's the biggest one. The rest of them are like smaller movies.
Maybe they'll really throw us for a loop, and him and Lindsay Lohan will trade places this time instead of Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan.
All right, next pod's going to hit on September 5th. We've got Dan Craig coming back.
Yes!
So he was with us. Chris O'Dowd, Tim Roth, Willem Dafoe, David Spade, Maggie Smith, and William Atherton. These are the 5 actors that we threw on the wheel for that episode, and he is coming back for one of them. So we got Christopher Fairbank, Goldie Hawn, Blythe Danner, Donnie Yen, and Lynn Redgrave.
Nice.
Remind me, who's Goldie Hawn's partner?
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, all right, that's it.
That's how we're basing this. Okay.
Craig Case is the biggest Kurt Russell fan in the history of humanity.
So I take it you're going to binge his upcoming Yellowstone spinoff.
Naturally.
I'm sure.
If we do Goldie Hawn, are we just going to talk about Kurt Russell the whole time?
God.
That's what's going to be happening.
We're going to have to put like boundaries on it for Case to focus on Goldie.
You will have to watch some bad Mel Gibson and Chevy Chase movies. So be forewarned. Just to let you know.
That's true.
She was in Laugh-In. I mean, that's a legendary start to a career.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, I don't know who any of these other people are.
What?
Donnie Yen is the man, bro.
Donnie Yen is the one. That's the one I want.
We want to watch Ip Man.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and 4. All of them.
I want this to be Donnie Yen so bad.
Oh, I'm sorry. His life partner's Kurt Russell?
I'd be. Donnie Yen's a pretty cool dude. I have no idea what his life is like.
Have you guys seen any Hong Kong stuff prior?
No, probably not. Probably not.
No, but there's stuff on my list that I want to see. Once Upon a Time in China 2, I want to see that really bad. I want to see that whole series. He's got stuff that I want to see.
It'll give you guys an excuse to watch more foreign cinema.
Yeah, hell yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
James Blythe Danner plays Fokker's mom in Meet the Fockers.
Mm-hmm.
That's who that is. That's probably the best role.
Okay.
I don't know much about her otherwise.
Those 3, I looked them up. You recognize them when you see them.
Yeah.
Blythe Danner is Gwyneth Paltrow's mom. Okay, well, that's a negative for her.
Yeah.
Lynn Redgrave is the sister of Vanessa Redgrave. And they're both sisters that have done quite a bit.
That was one of those I had to look her up. At first, I thought you were talking about Vanessa. And it's like, no, Lynn. Oh, wow. Okay.
A lot of theater. Married to John Clark.
Well, I'm going to learn no matter what, because even though I know Goldie Hawn's name, I don't know a lot of her movies. So whoever we choose, it's going to be very research heavy for me.
Yeah, this will be busy.
I definitely think you guys would like Donnie Yen. But Fairbank, from what I'm seeing, he's got a lot of Shakespearean stuff.
Fifth Element is the main one up there.
Below, that's a fun claustrophobic movie. So he's got a bunch of ensemble pieces, obscure stuff, and voiceover roles. So.
Who do we think Dan Craig would pick from this list?
Goldie Hawn.
Cam, if you had to pick one of these 5, it sounds like you would pick Donnie Yen.
I want to, although the objective side of me feels like I should probably check out Lynn Redgrave just to, be the bigger man and check out some other theater works.
Okay. Well, we don't decide. Cam doesn't decide. Dan Craig doesn't decide. Kurt Russell doesn't decide either.
Steven Seagal doesn't decide. No.
Oh my God, the wheel decides, and we'll see what happens. Well, Cam, we've reached the end here, my friend. We always appreciate having you here to talk shop. We know you're going to watch all the deep cuts, like all the TV show characters.
I love how you guys keep the whole show polished. You really do bring up just elegant parts about the actor, and I just love how just any actor you guys pick is like, I know there's something that relates to you personally. You're trying to find in between part or just some other factor that just stands out.
I appreciate that.
I love that.
That was very nice.
This is supposed to be a plug for you, and you're just showering us with laurels. I love this. This is great.
That was very kind.
Jacked Up Review Show you can find on all the other mediums. Since it's a variety show, we've been doing way more panels on everything from entrepreneurship to mental health to fitness and nutrition we got coming up. So that's just going to be fun. Have a crossover episode on that.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming back and spending some time with us. Always a good time.
Yeah, man. Love having you, Cam. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Everyone stay safe out there.
All right. Well, as we wrap things, you can always find us on X, Munsons at Movies. You can catch us on Instagram, Munsons at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from Stephen Tobolowsky.
Hey. Now, don't you tell me you don't remember me, because I sure as heck fire remember you. Ned Ryerson! Needle-nosed Ned the head. Come on, buddy. Case Western High.
Munson's out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?
Who is he?
He's an asshole, sir.
I know that. What's his name?
That is his name, sir. Asshole. Major asshole.
And his cousin?
He's an asshole, too, sir. Gun is made first class Philip Asshole.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow?
Yo!
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.